You are looking live. Yes, you are looking live at the Better Call Darrell podcast. Higher Top Radio Therapy Network. Where else would you want to be on this wonderful Thursday day? The NFL drafts tonight. The Cowboys picking 10th. Just saying. And if you know all of that, then you know what's ahead. What's ahead tonight? It's just you and I just talking. You and I talking about what's going on in the world, what's going on with people who need to get back to duty, people going on with counseling, things going on in the household, all types of things, right? And I'm going to tell you something else. I appreciate you viewing in today. I appreciate you understanding that you could be anywhere, anywhere, anywhere else, but you've chosen to be here today, and I certainly appreciate that. To my producer, Terrence, Jay, who runs this wonderful podcast for me. Without him, I'd just be sitting here talking and there'd be nothing else going on. But this is what's going on today. I get calls from people. When I get calls from people, I do my very best to answer. But sometimes that's not good enough. You know what I mean? So if people call you and they want you to drop everything that you have and just deal with them directly, and it's not personal, ever. Sometimes you just can't. It has to go to voicemail. Then, of course, when you get the opportunity to return the call, you're all types of colorful metaphors, and that's not good either. So, the Better Call Darrell show is for you. It's for you to not be entertained. It's for you to be informed of what types of things that go on into your household. I am outlining a few books right now, and when you see them, I'll give you the name of them and such. I'm trying to walk this line of being a chaplain and a counselor where I'm not vulgar and such. But there are some things that people do that are very dumb. And then, donkeys are asses. That's what they're actually called, jackasses. There's barrels. There's all types of things, right? So if you just heard what I said about the book, you put the names together and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. So today I had someone do something that was very dumb and remind me of a jackass, a donkey, that they shouldn't have done that because they didn't have to. So you come to your household. This is the scenario. The person comes to their household, and the wife's been working hard all day too, right? So they've chosen the roles. He is the proverbial breadwinner, and she is the housekeeper. She takes care of everything, manages the affairs, everything. So, 1 Peter 3 says that the woman who's the wife, is to respect her husband. It is implied that respect means honor and love. She's also to be his helpmeet, not his person underfoot or under toe, his helpmeet. But she can't rule effectively in that household if she doesn't know what she's assisting the king in meeting as the helpmeet. So the king comes home. How many of us believe that they're kings? I believe I'm a king because it's biblical. He says you're kings and priests of a royal line, a royal priesthood. So I walk in that kingship. I don't let it go over my head or to my head. I walk in that kingship. I walk in that priesthood. Well, this particular brother did not walk in his kingship or his priesthood. And he comes home daily demanding his supper. And no matter what the queen, his helpmeet, does, that's not enough. So I know there are people who are probably saying, well, I wouldn't tolerate that. I wouldn't put up with that. You never know until you're in the situation. Just because your situation's good today doesn't mean when you wake up in the morning it'll be the same way it was today. Doesn't mean that later this evening your situation won't be well. What it means is that through patience and perseverance, we come to grips with what is and what is not in our relationships, our marriages, our friendships, our businesses, those types of things. So today I'm going to give you some information that will arm you in the future to inform you that you don't have to tolerate foolishness. God suffers fools. You don't have to. We are to be people who to be present, to serve and support. But God does all of that and more. And if there's an issue, God addresses it. So we don't have to. So he comes home, right? And she's toiled all day. She said, well, shouldn't the house already be clean? No, because there are children there, right? And we're not talking about, children who are 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and ready to exit into the world. We're talking about little children, 6, 7, 8. Who's been 6, 7, 8 before? And unless you have a stern mother or father that you have to stand up and pay attention to, things happen. Things get out of order. Things get broken sometimes. There's trash accumulation. Rooms aren't clean, and it's a all hands on deck effort. And then, of course, the children come home from school, if it's not virtual, and they need homework done. So the parent or parents, should be able to sit down and assist the children in powering through the homework. All right. So the king comes home. What do you think happens? King wants his supper, right? He hasn't washed his hands, went in and cleaned up, brushed his teeth, he wants his supper. Doggone what she's been doing all day. You get a witness? So he comes home and he sits. He doesn't clean himself. He just sits. He wants his supper. And then, of course, with time, he's demanding his supper. Anyone traveled that path? So the queen, who's been toiling most of the day, she's tired. Her feet probably ache. She probably needs to go refresh herself as well. Now she needs to tend to the king's needs because he's hungry. So on this particular day, from what I understand, there were broiled steak, and there was, some rice. I think it was brown from what I was told. And there were dinner rolls, Hawaiian dinner rolls, and there was some broccoli, asparagus, and some other fruit, and there was some salad. It was a nice main course from what I can understand. There was water and juice to drink. That's what they wanted. So everybody, came in because the king had come home and had to sit around the table. This is a household that the mother handles the spiritual values within the context of the household. The father has fallen astray. He doesn't do it anymore. He's the king, though. Remember that word, king. So they used to get themselves prepared for dinner and sit at the table as a family. They would hold hands while they would pray. Even when there was the little ones were in the high chair, they would hold hands and such. You don't do it anymore. They don't do it anymore because they lost a child. And when they lost a child, the father, the king, didn't want to hear God's name anymore. It had nothing to do with God. So for a person to suffer through the loss of a child, for those who have never encountered such things, there's some understanding. But the understanding also has to be that God is creator of us all. And we all have an expiration date. That may not resonate with a lot of people, but it's true. As a hospice chaplain, I see death nearly every day. As a chaplain, I see dysfunctional, toxic, chaotic, mayhem-filled relationships of a spiritual nature every day. As an addictions, substance abuse, drug and alcohol, substance abuse counselor, chemical dependency counselor, I see how addiction ravages marriages, relationships, friendships, businesses. Now, I've never claimed to be God, and I don't play one on the show. I'm saying to you there are things that occur And so for this man to come back to a sense of normalcy, there's a surrender all aspect that has to occur. He's just not ready to commit himself to the surrender all mechanism. He's not ready to receive the message of hope. So at the dinner table, the wife wants to pray. And he yells at her, I told you that I don't ever want to hear God's name again. I don't want to hear Jesus' name. I don't want to hear the Holy Spirit. I don't hear anything connected with God ever again. The queen pleads with her husband and tells him exactly what I'm telling to you. There's a way back from this. His name is Jim. Her name's Joan. Jim's not trying to hear it. Joan's trying to assist him in telling him that there is hope for what they're doing because their marriage is crumbling around them. He is demonstrating what we call in counseling king baby. It's his way, no way. It has to be this way. They're 1 year removed from the child dying. Child died of COVID. I have someone who passed away a few weeks ago too, 7 years of age. You would know he was 7 by the way he spoke and the way he presented himself. He passed away from COVID too. This particular family has had to endure that. Do you not know that the mother has had her moments of shame and guilt and denial and pain, and she's cried because she carried that child. She delivered that child into the world. She loved that child. The first contact that child had is with the mother. But it appears that the king is holding the queen hostage based on how he's feeling. For those of us who are married, there's an understanding that for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, for sickness and in health. And all of those things, they connect. They all connect because not one of us has not been sick. Not one of us has not been in perfect health. Not one of us hasn't endured what richer or poorer means. And not one of us has not endured for better or for worse. They're probably in a situation where there's worse going on right now. So I was called. I didn't know either one of them. But apparently, the queen got to the king that they could have a counseling session. So as a biblical counselor, as a chaplain, and those components in addictions, alcohol, drugs, substance abuse, chemical dependency that you can use to counteract what is or what isn't, appointment was scheduled. I was telling Terrence J on my way to the studio today that there was someone who tried to hit me, and there was already an accident on the 35. I don't believe the 35 will be completed in my lifetime. There's always something going on the 35, the 121, the 140. It's always something. You can't escape it. The back roads, you just can't escape it, right? This woman wanted my space. Terrence J told me that he had encountered something similar today, but he actually got clipped. I'm sorry, I just had to get that out. So Jim and Joan have scheduled an appointment. So I spoke with them in person. And in the counseling profession, what happens is that, for me, I facilitate immediacy. We get right to it, right? There's motivational interviewing. There's all types of modalities that go in with counseling. You have to determine which is best for the counselees. Sometimes you encounter transference and countertransference. Somebody may remind you of someone, and you may remind yourself of them, right? So we sat down early. He took off work because he loved Joan so much that he didn't want this to be a continued issue. Joan called her mother to watch the children. Children didn't go to school. They were with their grandmother. And I sat down with Jim and Joan, and I asked just basic questions, but they were root-causing questions. The first question is, are both of you all right? That question is asked to generate discussion. I can't assume anyone's all right. You lost a child a year ago. Of course you're not all right. But if you don't ask, you don't know. When I asked that question, I had to understand a couple things. I'm sorry, I thought the phone was off. I had to ask the question that if you're not all right, how can we get you there? And this man, Jim, he's about 42. I think that's what he told me was 42, 43. Joan is 39. And a watershed of emotion presented itself. And Joan tried to compose herself to assist her. Remember, we're dealing with kingship and queenship here. What do kings and queens do? They rule. What do priests do? They pray. Priestesses, they pray. So I'm going to go back a bit. When I asked the question, are you okay? We had already prayed. And Jim was, he wanted to pray. Isn't that like a breakthrough? He wanted to pray. Because what came out of his mouth was this: what I'm doing is not working. I need God in my life. I need him today. So we got into all of that. And after he, stopped crying a bit and Joan stopped crying a bit, I asked another question. Based on what has occurred in your lives, what are you prepared to do? And the answer was, that's why we called you. I'm happy that someone calls me. Because as much as I could ever give counsel, when I'm speaking with someone, they're ministering to me too. Better Call Darrell is not just for return to duty for the Department of Transportation, FMCSA, FAA, those entities, NRC. It's for the opportunity to connect with everyone. The reality of it is, I've been most people. But I don't know what it's like to lose a child. I know what it's like to lose a dog, a cat, fish, maybe a bird. I don't know what it's like to lose that human, that child. And I saw photos of the child. They brought 2 photos of the child. He looked just like his father. Just like his father. With me speaking to you this afternoon, I want you to understand something for me, please. The scriptures teach us that life is just a wisp of smoke. We're here and we're gone. And no matter how much money you have in the world, When your time comes and you're gone. So the hour I spent with Jim and Joan was remarkable because there was a breakthrough. And so now I'll see them twice a week because that's what they want. I'll see them twice a week. Just a random telephone call and I answered. Got the background. And I'm sharing this with you. You. On the Better Call Darrell podcast. The other story I want to share with you is this. So about a month ago, well, let's go back to the actual event. About 3 months ago, I am in a room with dying parents and a great uncle. This family was originally from South Dakota. So I get there because I need to establish that I'm, their chaplain. I need to establish that, whatever you need, I'm present for you. I want to establish also that when I say that I'm here for you, I mean that. I'm here for you. The father, who is in a position where he has pancreatic cancer, he has colon cancer as well, and he's dying, but he's made peace with it. The mother has lung cancer. And the uncle, he's comatose. The uncle, which is the mother's brother, they all went into business and brought that business from South Dakota to Texas. The mother and father had 4 children, 2 girls, 2 boys. I met the daughters when I first, got to the extended care facility. They were originally in their homes, but they're at the extended care facility. So for me, what ended up happening is I met the 2 daughters first. They gave me their names and such. And they had this big suite. So the father was here, the mother was next to him, and then the brother was here. And they had 3 TVs, the biggest TVs in person I'd seen hanging on the wall ever. And they had a spread of food that could feed an army. I'm just telling you. They were worth $900 million liquid. So during the course of this fellowship, the younger brother shows up. And then the younger brother gets into it with the sisters. Maybe a moment or so later, the older brother and his wife and little son show up. And they all get into it. Now, the little boy looks like, if you go and find a photo of George Armstrong Custer, that's exactly who he looked. He's 7 years of age. He got a cowboy hat on, white. He's got flowing, curly, blonde hair. The shiniest blue eyes you ever want to see. He's got a Western shirt on, a bolo, a pair of jeans, a big belt buckle with the belt, and silver-tipped cowboy boots. He's silent the whole time this is going on. He has a bolo on, so his name was Tyler. I call him Bolo because of the bolo. After the argument was over, young Tyler said, "See this boot? I'll put in your ass." The mother and father started dying laughing. So did the sisters. I got up and went outside and walked away, and I was dying laughing because I had never heard anything like that before. Why am I sharing this with you? Because it was funny. Yes, it was wrong for him to say that to his uncle, but under the circumstances, it was comical. So after I was able to leave, the grandparents died maybe 2 days later, and the uncle died like 4 or 5 days later. It's like death swept through that room and took them. God took them. He had an expiration date. Tyler was now going to be the face of the family. Although he was 7, if you spoke to him, other than that comment I just made about him that he said, you swear he was much older. Train up a child in the way he should go, and he will not depart from it. Well, nearly 3 weeks ago today, Tyler died of COVID. I got a call that he was in the hospital, but no one could go visit him because he was in ICU. And they had the best doctors money could buy. They had the best this and the best that and the best care. 24 hours, they just had it. He died. The father called me because the mother just was too distraught and said, and told me what happened. And before I could say God knows or God is able or God will do, he said, I don't want to hear anything about God. Nothing about God. Nothing against you, chaplain. Nothing with God. So, in the last couple of moments here, I want you guys to understand something. We all have an expiration date. It's going to come. It's going to happen. But God is not the culprit. Sin is. Without sin, there's no death. Without sin, there's no toothaches. Without sin, there's no torn ACLs and the torn Achilles. Without sin, there's no joblessness. Without sin, there's no homelessness. Without sin, you can eat whatever you want when you want to be able to eat it. But sin is sin. Sin does that. But the renewal of who God is makes it all perfect. My name is Darrell Hartley. I'm a chaplain. I'm a counselor. And I'm a friend to you. And I again thank you for showing up and viewing and having some fun, but also understanding what the seriousness of the world is and the nature of the content is. That we can all come together and live in love, fun, friendship, and fellowship. Being high atop radiotherapy, this wonderful network, and the Darrell Hartley, the Better Call Darrell Hartley podcast, I extend a wonderful hello and thank you to you. And until the next time that we meet, I want to give you some information. You can get me online at www.bettercalldarrell.com. That's www.bettercalldarrell.com. My direct line is area code 469-557-2127. 469-557-2127. And know that when you call me, it will be me. Thank you for the opportunity to be present, serve, and support. And until next time, remain blessed.